Welcome back to Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. I am so delighted to have Joe Henry here today from King's College University. He's the Dean of Students. So Joe, welcome.
Hi, Deb. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited to be in here today and talk a little bit about my leadership journey and engage with you about some of that. I'm just so pleased that you asked me to be part of it. So thank you so much.
Well, I said when I met you a year and a bit ago, you give me vibes of my Uncle Ed, who's no longer here. And I remember saying to Laura, "Oh my gosh, I could just sit and talk to him all day." You have that quiet, approachable presence. And even when I first met you and sat in your office, so being compared to him pretty high. So just so you know, you're already in an esteemed position in my mind and my heart because I loved him dearly. So
Oh, thanks so much. I'll try to keep on remember that. What would Uncle Ed do? I'll have to keep that in my.
and he was in academia too, which is fun, right? Like he was a teacher. He loved art. He coached teams, and he was just that all around teacher that the kids love to go to. And I know that's very much a real presence for you up at King's. So I'm going to ask you, welcome to season 5, by the way. I pinched myself that we've been doing this for 5 seasons and 5 years and so many amazing leaders all over the globe. But start by sharing with our listeners a little bit about who Joe Henry is and a little bit about your position and maybe something that you love about it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of been a kind of a winding path. Everyone thinks these your career kind of profession or your how you move along a path is kind of linear. I don't think it's ever linear. I think it's stops and starts and a roundabout. And so yeah, I'm the Dean of Students here at King's. I've been here. Actually, it's coming. I'm in my 10th year. It was my 9th year anniversary on Saturday. That I've been around King's and supporting our students and the experience of our students here at King's as a university. So really have enjoyed that time. Prior to that, I was the Associate Dean for Students and Student Success at Sheridan College, which is in the Oakville kind of GTA, West End GTA. And very much enjoyed that, but really started my career in post-secondary as an advisor for students with disabilities. It's a space where I kind of really landed and really started to feel comfortable in terms of problem solving and looking at how we could best accommodate individual differences. And those, to some extent, some people with disabilities were put on the margins by society. And how do we make workplaces and organizations and schools more inclusive? So that really has driven a lot of my leadership journey, is that first experience being an advisor for students with disabilities and listening to them about their stories, and then taking those stories to say, okay, how can we build upon that to build better places and think about how do we include more people in that journey so that people feel supported, but also how they can make a difference. And I think from the standpoint of the work we've done, certainly here at King's, but certainly in the time frame that I've been in my career, I've really been using that grounding point as a starting point, as a frontline advisor for students with disabilities, as a way to kind of frame my work. And I use that frame in a lot of different areas in terms of working with staff, working with students, working with faculty, is how can we include more people in the discussion as opposed to excluding? And that's the frame of reference that I always use.
I love that. And I align with you. I spent over 20 years as a neurotrauma case manager and working with both children, young adults with disabilities, whether it was developmental or acquired. And they still to this day have a special place in my heart. I still hear from some of the children that I looked after that were, early school educational age, and now they're all grown up and in post-secondary. And you just know that you had a little piece in their journey.
Yeah.
And I can see all the transferable skills that you bring into your role that you have right now. So that's beautiful.
It's it's always a big great that my biggest is see him walk across the stage at convocation and say,
Yes.
"Wow, well, look at the success here." And so that's my success is their success. It's not it's and if we can play a little part in that, that's great.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
All right. I'm going to dig into some leadership questions with you
Great.
here. I want to talk to you about the importance of having that servant or heart-centered mindset when you are a leader. And just to preface it by saying, it doesn't matter what sector you're in, it doesn't matter what level you're in. How important has that mindset served you as a leader? And when do you find that you utilize it or pull it out of your toolkit the most, or is it a daily stop for you?
I I think it's more of a daily stop for me. I think how can I best serve the people that I work with and work for? I always introduce myself to students as I'm your dean of students. I don't say, it's someone that's puts myself above somebody else. I try to see them on the same level playing field. So I think that really links in with the idea of being a heart centered or a servant leader is the fact that you're not going to do things that you wouldn't ask others to do things that you wouldn't do yourself. So that means you are engaged if there's a frontline activity going on, for example, during O week, is being visible and present, but also rolling up your sleeves and helping people move into residence? Or is it situations like there's a problem with a issue or whatever issue a student might, it's you can certainly delegate it. And in some cases I will, but in other cases, you can take that on and help navigate, especially for those people that might not have the experience of navigating a post-secondary journey. I'm thinking about people that maybe are new to Canada or maybe their background or their family background had limited experience with post-secondary. Trying to navigate the hidden curriculum of the place can be challenging and daunting at times. So I always try to say, how can I involve myself in this situation to the extent that I can? Obviously, there's sometimes privacy, confidentiality things that play into it, but in many cases, it's just that helping hand to get them to the next space and that sort of warm handoff instead of, oh, you just need to go talk to that person. Why don't you just I say walk them there, have a conversation along the way, learn a little bit about them, where are they coming from, what is what's their experience prior to, how's their experience been so far? Just build on that relational piece that I think is so important because everything's so automated now. Like you can do AI stuff for everything, but the relational piece, the conversation that we're having today is so important, I think, to the experience of our students or basically any organization. I think that's going to make organizations stand out. I think in the future where there's all this AI stuff happening for good reason. AI stuff can help us with some of that, but the relational pieces of what we do as heart-centered leaders, as servant leaders, that's always going to be needed. And those organizations that do that well are going to stand out. And so, I think selfishly as a leader, to help grow our organization, I want that to be in part of who we are here at King's, but more importantly, it's who I am. Like I want to come across as hopefully authentic and genuine, and I want to generally help people. I wouldn't get into this job if I didn't want to help people.
Absolutely. Well said. And I can tell you as a leadership coach who has clients in 6 countries, what you just said is exactly what is happening. AI is a tool, and I always use candor and humor. I haven't found a robot yet that has a gregarious personality.
Yeah.
We're still going to need human beings to execute the AI tool. But the companies that are really navigating heart centered leadership well, they have made a profound, I'm going to kind of say a landscape within their organizational culture.
Yeah.
And corporate wellness, 20 to 25 years ago, when I was a case manager, it was all about mitigating short term disability claims for stress.
Mm.
Fast forward to 2024, and corporate wellness now is employee retention.
Uh-huh.
And if employees are not looked after, especially at your level, the leadership term is flight risk. Someone else is going to come along and tap them on the shoulder and say, if you're not happy, come join. It's happening on the daily.
Yep.
And I have helped 98 executives in different sectors move because of what you just spoke about since May of 2020. That's a lot. That's almost 20, 25 a year.
Yeah.
And some of them have taken a demotion. Some of them have left the sector. Some of them have stayed in the sector and gone to work for a heart-centered leader. And I think that's what we took away from COVID. And I still believe firmly that we are in a post-pandemic era. And I'm a person that loves to have thought leadership, and I'm always thinking and observing. And I really take away from great conversations with clients. And we do have a trust problem around the globe.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's, to me, that's why we're going to host a trust conference in the fall.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring in the guy that's the world guru. He's in all the big companies and he did his PhD on trust. So when people say things like we have a communication problem or we have an employee retention problem, that's at the surface. I'm a boater, Joe, so I use boat analogy. The anchor is trust.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so just know that, it doesn't matter what sector you're in, what city, what level of leadership, we really have a visceral trust problem around the globe. And I look forward to exploring this more. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly a lifelong learner, as I know you are. So it leads nice into my next question. This question has permanent residency on the show. I've asked, I don't even know, I'm going to say close to 300 people, leaders. What imperfections does Joe Henry bring to his role as Dean of Students?
Well, certainly from the standpoint is I can always get better. I know that I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone is perfect.
No.
I think we strive for perfection. I think it was Vince Lombardi said this. I think you strive for perfection and you get excellence.
Yeah.
So you always try to say, you want to be perfect. You want to have that perfect, orientation day. You want to have that perfect convocation day. You want to have that perfect wedding day. All those things, whether it's personal or professional. But you can strive for perfection. You're never going to have it because you're always going to see the little things. I see the little things, and then my staff also see little things. Students may not see it, but we see it. Or the students may talk about what they would have liked, but we didn't see it. So that there's going to be a mismatch at times. But as long as we can strive for perfection, we can be excellent. You can provide excellent service. You can provide excellent support to individuals. You can, go that extra mile when you don't have to go that extra mile. I think those little things do matter. So paying attention to little things that from time to time, I can't say I always see all the little things. There's lots of things that they don't let me make aesthetic decisions in my office or anything because I don't really do decoration really well. I know that I have my limits there. Even at home, there's probably limits to what I see. So, I continually every day I know I probably could done something a little bit differently, or I could have been a little bit more, maybe open to something a little bit different. But at the end of the day, if I have more wins in my column than losses, that's excellence to me. And Absolutely. So I just kind of live by that mindset. And we can always get better. We can always improve. And I think that's how I hopefully the students feel that. Hopefully the people I work with feel that. And hopefully what they see is what they get, knowing that you have an imperfect person in front of you.
Yeah. And I always love talking about imperfection when I'm teaching my students at Fanshawe. And I'm like, I would rather you try with your thought leadership and have the ability to fail forward so then we can pick each other back up, have a great conversation, convert it to a learning opportunity than to not try at all because you're afraid.
Yeah. Well, I also is another side of my life, I teach part-time at Fanshawe as well in the academic upgrading program, in the ACE program, where students are, obviously getting them back up to speed and thinking about their future state, but they need to kind of get their fundamentals set. And so impressed with this group. We're taking risks, and we're just finishing up the semester or the term right now. And I'm seeing the growth from 8-9 weeks ago to now and what they've achieved. And a lot of them coming in a little bit nervous about having to write something or having to present something. Well, boy, that really keeps you inspired to see. You hear a little bit about their stories coming in and some of the barriers they've had to now, which is so exciting to see. So, it is about that. He's seeing that growth piece. It's, certainly I don't see perfection, but I see that growth mindset is so important to that whole activity, is that I can get better, I can do better, I can strive for that high bar. And I think that's a message we want to send to everybody.
My Uncle Ed used to say, the teacher appears when the student is ready.
Yep.
And that program's phenomenal. And it's the same in the micro credentials. I have them for 3 hours a week for a 5 leadership series, 5 micro credentials. And they learn more about themselves to put in their leadership toolkit, which is really what leadership is all about. When we can manage that inner leader and up level our self-awareness, it's not about us, but it's an ongoing journey, like you said. And the more we can navigate, the better we are and the more we learn.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Let me share my third question for you. I know that you think and feel that storytelling is a big intrinsic motivator for leadership. How do you use it in your life, and how does that transfer into your leadership role? Because you've read my book, by the way. Thank you so much for your
comments. Right here in front of me, I have it right here. That's great.
Life shows up at work.
Yep.
It does. And work shows up in our life. So how can you bring that beautiful modality of storytelling from your life into leadership and really keep it heart-centered in the forefront?
There's so many great stories that I get exposed to with students and staff and what have you, and faculty that I work with. They get to hear a little bit about their journeys and where they were from or what they've done. One that comes to mind, when I was working at Sheridan College back in the day, we were working with a team of individuals trying to define the idea of student success. What does student success look like? And what is the impact? What do the impact of different staff or different faculty have on student success? And they were doing interviews with different stakeholders around the college. And this included people from physical plant. One of the stories that were told was by one of the workers who were cleaning the classroom. And cleaning the classroom is, obviously, you're emptying the garbage, making sure that the tables are all right and what have you. But she took it to a next level. She saw her job related to student success because she cleans because students learn here. So those sorts of stories, the fact that you connect your job to something bigger. You can connect your ideas of what you are, no matter how big or how small, that you can connect those ideas to something bigger than yourself. And I think that's an important part of helping people get engaged is using those stories to say, listen, you may think that what you're doing doesn't have an impact, but it does. So every year since I've been here, I have always met with our physical plant staff, which are the best staff in the country, for sure, who keep our campus clean and functioning and what have you. But I meet with them because I want them to obviously know about some of the things that we're doing, and they can be our eyes and ears around things as well. But I see it more as a value proposition piece to them to say, listen, you are valued for the work that you're doing, and know that I value it, and because I'm sharing this information with you, you're sharing information with me, and that contributes to student success. So I think those types of things are really helpful for people to feel their work be validated, that they feel validated. Because I think sometimes people forget about people that might be quote unquote maybe not core to the mission. Everyone is core to mission. If you're not, if people don't feel connected to that, then you got a trust problem, then you got communication problems. But people feel need to be connected to something, and
Absolutely.
by having people meet and tell stories, but learn, I think that's been something that I've tried to keep into my as part of my leadership toolkit, I guess.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's the last sentence of my introduction. You don't need initials after your name to be kind.
Nope, absolutely not.
And, you know, there's CEOs out there that do it so well. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, the COO or the janitor, you have time to have a discussion to value and intrinsically validate everybody in the organization, regardless of stature, title, role, responsibility, etc. And that's a great, great story.
Yeah.
I know I remember Laura telling me about meeting the woman that came into student council frequently, and Laura would always engage in a conversation, and she was delighted. And she hadn't had that exposure before. And to me, I really would like to remove the myth or the thought that someone is beneath you. And you touched on that before. We are all people with different backgrounds and stories. We all come from different psychosocial and social economic statuses. It shouldn't matter.
No, it absolutely should not matter. It's how you treat everyone is, with respect, with genuine, want to hear their stories, be authentic with them. That's what matters to me. And I think if more people did that, I think, we'd have less problems out there.
What a world it would be, Joe.
Certainly
Fun
would be.
world.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my last leadership question. Share with us the importance of colleagues at work and also out in the community for us as leaders. Again, it doesn't matter what sector or what level, those connections, that heart centered connection, honoring your connection with people with no place for reciprocity. How important has that been in your leadership journey and where you're at now as Dean of Students?
Yeah, I think the importance of, obviously networking is really important, and having regular touch points with people that maybe you don't come across. So you try to, do something to connect with them. Certainly with my colleagues, regular time with them where we can meet and talk about their issues or some of the challenges that they're facing. Making time to visit. Like I spend every morning, I do walk around campus and do a touch base with my staff and see how things are going, or anything that I can help with, sort of thing. Or I can, if I want to, just have a conversation, I try to touch base with if person's cutting the grass outside, and let's have a conversation, talk. Again, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are in the organization. I can learn from you, or I can, you are hearing something, maybe I can help with something. So I've always started taking that approach with colleagues. Similar, going out into the community. How can I help the community? How can I use my skills to best help the community? So I sit on the board of directors of Changing Ways, which is an organization dedicated to really changing the channel on gender-based sexual violence, and specifically addressing issues around harm that male-identifying individuals perpetrate in society. But broadly speaking, they're really focused on changing the narrative, and so around that really important topic. So I'm trying to take my experience that I use here and connect it up to the experience here at King's, to the experience with Changing Ways, and really helping advance shared goals and objectives. So we have a young population that needs more education and training and support around gender-based sexual violence. I work with Changing Ways to maybe bring that to campus. So in this past year, we had a seminar with the mayor and several other leaders from across the city talking about what men can do to impact gender-based sexual violence. So it's using those opportunities to use your skills, but cross those boundaries and to make a difference. And I think that's when I've been try to be somewhat intentional around that in terms of working. But it's more, it goes from that said, what can I do to help? So everywhere is threaded through, what can I do to help in this situation? And I'm not actually looking for anything in return. My goal is really to advance and help others to achieve some of the things that they want to achieve. And there's lots of organizations. I think it's going to need to be even more as budgets get tight and things get, continue to, and it's always doing more with less and trying to figure out how those partnerships and collaborations are going to be so crucial moving forward. And I think that breaking down those boundaries between different organizations are going to be needed, but it's only through the relational skills that we have that's going to happen. And, again, goes back to your work in the leadership playbook. It's, that heart-centered focus, that focus on kindness is going to get us further down the path than anything else. Then, technology alone isn't going to solve this problem.
Absolutely. And for your world, you look at what's happening around the globe. I mean, the population's getting smaller. People aren't having kids or they're having less kids. And the baby boomers are now our biggest demographic on a global level. People are living longer. There's just so many variables. It's going to be interesting to see in the next decade where the academic sector goes, especially post-secondary. I'm seeing it at the high school level. I returned to my high school here in the city, Montcalm Secondary, and I know they're certainly not at their maximum capacity, again, for various reasons. But the biggest is there's just not the amount of kids from feeder schools anymore because people aren't having kids. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that shifts.
Yeah, it will be. And, obviously it's trying to figure out where we land in terms of this, but that gives opportunity. I try to, we can see the world as kind of glass half full, or we can see the world as glass half empty. I kind of like to see the glass as half full. And there's so much more opportunity. And sometimes we get bogged down in the stuff, but big picture, let's think about how do we solve problems together? How do we work together? And,
absolutely. The partnership and collaboration is
absolutely.
It's foundational, and it's not the future, it's now, and it's happening. And I love it. Okay. I'm going to pivot to my Fab Four.
Fab Four.
No thinking, just what's on the top of that brilliant mind.
I don't know.
All right. Here's my first question. What's one practical tip you'd give our listeners for embracing heart-centered leadership into their daily lives?
Listening. Listen to the people you work with. Listen to the people you work for. Trust those, what you're saying is true. Obviously, may not be always based in certain fact, but that is their perspective on that. And how do you then dialogue and actively listen to what they're saying so that you can advance a conversation? So if you can't listen, you can't learn. And so I think that's a critical part of the process that people need to incorporate into their leadership playbook. Listen first, act later.
I think that should be a new Joe Henry quote.
Oh, maybe we can put that.
You can't listen, you can't learn. I think we're going to grab that one out as a highlight for sure. Okay, second question. If your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm a big Friends fan. So, I guess maybe we'll go from there is I'll be there for you,
I love that. I can see that for you, Joe.
I've always when I came into this role, I wanted to be a visible presence. I didn't want to be a place where people go to, they have this maybe mythology around Dina students. So that's where you go when you're in trouble. They think about, oh no, you don't want to go see that person because you only see that person when they're in trouble. No, I want you to be, I want you to come see me anytime. I want, when you're in trouble, yes. When you have questions, yes. When you're having a fabulous time, I want to hear from, I think
It's that misperception, right?
that's exactly, I'll be here for you, and we'll work together on things to, help you problem solve or help you celebrate. Because
It's lovely.
that's one thing I like to do is celebrate too. I love like when, again, people crossing the stage at convocation. We're going to be having that in a week, couple weeks, and people will be crossing across, and it's always great to see that. And I can't wait to celebrate with our students and their success. And it's just going to be fabulous. And that's what I want to do. And I'm here for you to help support you. Yeah.
Okay, third question. What would you summarize as the key takeaway or lesson from our discussion today?
I think obviously, you got to be a heart-centered leader. We'll throw that, that's important. Obviously, kindness. I think there's a lot of unkind things being said on the world. You look on this social media landscape, and what's, sometimes people are quick to put things on social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or whatever we're calling it now, sort of thing. And you forget there's people behind some of that stuff. I know there's bots and all those things that are part of the Twitter scape, but there's a fundamental piece associated with how we should be treating one another. Is that kindness should underpin everything. I think that what we talked about here today is fundamentally a foundation of kindness. Helps you move the path down, helps you build the relationships. And, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be, 100% every time, but, you can be kind a good chunk of the time. And, let's put our focus there.
Absolutely.
And maybe we can start moving the needle on some of these other things. So,
absolutely. Good advice.
yeah.
Well, I knew this was going to be a fun conversation. I'm going to have you finish the show by finishing this sentence for me.
Okay.
Heart-centered leadership is?
Heart-centered leadership is putting the person in front of you first. That is the person that you are listening to, the person that you're hearing a concern about, that you're hearing a compliment from, that you are engaging in a planning session from. I think putting them first and thinking about what their goals are and having those, talking about kindness, talking about listening, talking about understanding your own imperfections, bringing that all into it, but knowing that that person is in front of you is the most important person at that point in time. I can't say I'm perfect at all the time at that, but that's what I try and do with respect to my work with students, is that when they're in front of me, they are the most important person, that I'm present with them and that I'm listening to them. So that's really what a heart-centered leader should be doing.